The opinions and views expressed in the following program are those of the speakers and the host, and do not necessarily reflect those of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? But can you help me out? Am I on my own? Am I on my own? Or can you help me out? Can you help me out? I've been scared to look in my soul. I've been afraid I would follow the road. Yeah, afraid of the things I've been told.
And hello, everybody. Welcome inside a Tuesday episode Running Point on YSNLive.com. Brought to you, as always, by our good friends over at Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Anthony Hartwig with you. We are so happy that you come aboard to this wonderful show every day. Greenwood Chevrolet, the sponsor, we thank them as well. We have a good show for you today. We're going to recap all the action that happened last night. Of course, had some conference standings implications. Had some really good games, had a couple of really good performances. We'll go over all of that. And then we will also dive into the brackets, finish up our softball tournament preview with breaking down divisions 3 and 4 and talking about those teams in a little bit more depth today as well. First, we're going to go to the scoreboard, but bear with me because I accidentally set up the bracket first, so I have to get the scoreboard back in the shared screen column, so bear with me for a minute as I bring up the scoreboard on ysnlive.com. All right, here we go. We're going to come back here. Boom. Here we go. The scoreboard on ysnlive.com, which is presented by Burnett Pool Spas and Hot Tubs. The YSN scoreboard is a great tool for our fans, whether you are at one of the games or watching one of our broadcasts. Either way, you don't want to look away from the screen for too long or the action. And the YSN scoreboard is a great, easy way to get live updated scores of your favorite teams across the YSN family. It can be found at ysnlive.com/scores. And once again, it is presented by Burnett Pools, Spas, and Hot Tubs. Let's get into it. Monday, May 6th, and baseball gets us started as we had a good one in Ashtabula County. Jefferson gets the win 9-2, a big win for the Falcons, especially their pitching staff. We know that Edgewood team can really put up the runs, so holding them to 2 is a very good day for any pitching staff. Jefferson gets the win. Lakeside falls to Madison 8-0, the final score in that one. Orange Nailbiter falls to Perry 5-4. And then we have Pymatuning Valley. They beat Grand Valley 2-1. Austintown Fitch gets the win over Ursuline 3-1. Battle of 224 goes to Canfield in a 8-5 game. That could be a game that we see in the tournament time as well. Columbiana and East Palestine doing battle as Columbiana gets the win 3-1. A little bit of a comeback for East Palestine this time. That snaps a little bit of a skid for the Clippers as well. So they get back to their winning ways with a 3-1 win over the Bulldogs. Youngstown East gets a win over Badger, 8-7, your final score there. Hubbard with the win over Niles, 8-0. They blanked the Dragons. Middle Ridge and Matthews did not report a score. Howland and Salem, they did, and it was Howland that got the win, 9-4 over the Quakers. South Range all over Lakeview, 8-1, the final there. in the Indy 8. Southern is not able to gather up enough to beat Lisbon 4-3. The final score in that one. Gerard gets the win over Struthers 11-5. We go back to the EOAC. United gets the win over Wellsville 10-0. MVAC action. Lowville gets the win over Western Reserve 7-2. We had Geneva beat Conneaut 7-0. And then United in game 2 against Wellsville wins over the Tigers 10-0. The final score there. We also had a game where Springfield beat McDonald. And I want to bring up this game because it is probably the best individual performance that we've seen from a baseball player this year. I want to talk about Blake Jeffries and what he was able to do last night. Check out this stat line real quick. Blake Jeffries at the plate was 4 for 5, 2 home runs, 8 RBI, 4 runs scored. That's a monster day at the plate for Blake, and Springfield gets the big win, 13-4 over McDonald. We go to softball. Mohawk falling to Union area 6-2. They gave up all 6 of those runs in the final 2 innings, so Mohawk slips at the end and falls 6-2. Howland Bats alive and well in Columbiana Firestone Park. The Tigers won 13-3 over the Clippers. United gets the win over Carrollton 10-8. Austintown Fitch absolutely no trouble with Avon Lake as they win 18-0. Hubbard with the win over Niles in a doubleheader where they won game 1 11-0. They won game 2 3-0. Crestview and Salem, the Quakers, get the win 8-5 over Crestview. South Range beats Lakeview 6-5 to get the NEA championship. They can get an outright title tonight if they win game 2. South Range was up 6-3. Max Stowe came up to the plate and drove a 2-run home run over the center field wall to make it a 1-run game, but South Range shut the door after that and held on for the victory. They will try to once again win tonight to sweep the series and get the NEA championship outright. If Lakeview wins tonight at South Range, those 2 teams will split the NEA and share it. But South Range is guaranteed a trophy after last night's win. Warren JFK, they fell to Newton Falls. This was a tournament game. The Tigers get the win and advance 12-2. Beaver Local falls by 1 to Minerva, 5-4. A tough one for the Beavers to swallow. Lakeside falls to Maslin Perry, 20-0. The final score there. Wellsville advances in the tournament with a 22-10 win over Springfield. Domination for Wellsville there. Another tournament game, Badger gets the win over Lordstown. They will advance into the sectional final. Same thing with Lowville as they get the win 12-2 over Lisbon and advance into the sectional finals. Cardinal beats Latonia to end the Bears season 26-1. The final score there. St. John wins over Sebring to advance 13-3. Wyndham gets the win 14-4 over Kidron Central Christian to advance in the tournament. Grand Valley gets the win as well. They are advancing to the sectional finals. They win 16-7 over Lake Center Christian. Southern beats Rittman 2-1 to advance. Boardman, this is not a tournament game. They had the bye, but they win in a regular season matchup with Notre Dame Cathedral Latin 4-3. The final score. Matty Weimer with a go-ahead 2-run home run in the 6th to give the Boardman Spartans the win. Then Cheney and Geneva playing each other, and it's Geneva that gets to win 13-2. The final score there. That game was a tournament game. Most of Division II will be happening tonight, but that game got moved up to Last night, Geneva advances to play at Canfield on Thursday. So that does it for our scoreboard. A lot of good scores. We have tournament implications as well, as South Range now has at least a share of the league championship. JFK fell to Lake Center Christian, so they are not going to win the PTC this year. On the baseball side, and some tournament games go down for softball. A lot happening last night, and a lot at stake, of course, in the Ysn family. So what we're going to do now, we're going to flip over from the scoreboard, and we're going to go to talk about the brackets. Divisions 3 and 4, both on tap today. So once again, bear with me as I switch screens here. All right, here we go. We're bringing up the bracket. Here we go, the Northeast District Database. And we're going to go into Division 3 and talk about these brackets. We'll start with the South Range District, and the Raiders are the 1 seed. This tournament starts tonight, but the Raiders have a bye. They will play on Thursday in their first tournament game. They're awaiting the winner of Canton South and Brookfield. United is the next line on this bracket. They have a bye. They await the winner of tonight's game between Poland and VASJ. We go down the line as Columbiana has the bye. They await the winner of Wycliffe and Garrettsville Garfield. And then Rootstown right there is the 10 seed. They will await the winner of Pymatuning Valley and Kirtland. So you look at this bracket, I think there are a couple of things that are pretty interesting. And the first one, we'll start at the top with South Range. They're going to have, a pretty favorable first round matchup, whether it be Brookfield or Canton South. That is going to be a 2 seed versus a 12 or a 19. Canton South was just in action a couple of days ago against West Branch. The Warriors took care of them. So South Range will probably see Canton South. We don't know. Brookfield, a very good team this year. Lost a lot, but they've grown a lot as well. So that they're starting to hit their stride in the right time. So they could pull off an upset. I think Ariana Jones is going to be a big key to that if they're able to do it. She's to pop in that lineup for Brookfield. Same thing with Jasmine Hubbard. If those two are able to put some bats together, Brookfield could come up and sneak up on Canton South. Interestingly enough, Brookfield was in this district last year, got to the district semifinal, and lost to Poland before putting up a pretty good fight in the bracket. Now, this line of the bracket here is United, and they await the winner of Poland and VASJ. This is probably the most interesting possible matchup of the bracket because Poland is the favorite tonight. They should beat VASJ as the 9 seed against 22. Then they're going to go to United if they win. It's the 6 seed United, 9 seed Poland. And it'll be very interesting because Poland, of course, has the edge in strength of schedule, but United has the edge in numbers and record and everything else. And if these two teams play each other and then Poland has to go on the road, very different styles of softball as well. Poland, an extra base hit team. They have a little bit of speed at the bottom of the lineup with Jakubovic, at the top of the lineup with Eliana Thompson, but most of their players rely on their extra base hit potential, their power. And United definitely has some pop in their bat, that's for sure. They can hit, but they love small ball. They have a lot of speedy players. They're going to put a lot of pressure on that infield, especially when you're playing Olivia Horn, who's not necessarily a quote-unquote strikeout pitcher. You got to think they're going to put a lot of balls in play and put a lot of pressure on that good infield for Poland, an infield that returns everybody from a season ago. You look at Eliana Thompson at third, Brandt at short. You have Kylie Hudrin at second, Leanne Williams at first. All those players were infielders in last year's team that went to the district championship. So the infield is completely the same. A lot of this roster actually, outside of the pitching, is the same from the team that went all the way to the district championship last year. Now, Poland's going to be hungry. One of the things I want to watch in this matchup, if it happens, if they take care of VASJ, don't want to put the cart before the horse, of course, but we're talking in hypotheticals. If United versus Poland happens, one of the things that I would not want to see if I was Poland is that look ahead, because their probable district semifinal opponent is going to be their biggest rival, South Range. The team that they played very tough twice this year, the team that they played into extras into the district championship last year. So if you're kind of chomping at the bit for that game and you forget to show up at United, that can snake bite you really quick. So if that happens, if Poland goes into United, very interested to also see what their mentality is going into it and how they're able to focus on that game, that opponent, before they even start to think about South Range ahead. Because I know all the fans and the media are all going to be pointing at South Range Poland saying that's going to be a rematch. But, Poland's team and their coaches and their players can't afford to do that. Their fans can do that all they want. They can salivate over the opportunity to have another chance at South Range. But the players got to take care of United first if they're going to get to South Range. And United is absolutely good enough to beat you if you don't show up. They can beat you if you do show up. But if you don't show up, they're going to beat you. So it's very interesting in this matchup. United has played South Range before in the district tournament very recently. 2 years ago, it was a district semifinal, I believe. They've been in this district before. They're used to it. They've won a couple of district games. They're starting to know how to win. And they've only lost 2 games all year. So a very talented United team waiting Poland if the Bulldogs are able to get the win tonight against VASJ. You go to the bottom line of this bracket, it gets even more fun because Columbiana's down here. And they're trying to wipe away some recent tournament disappointment. They've been beaten earlier than they would have liked in the last couple of district tournaments. And they have been focused this year on, yes, wanting to do as good as they can in the regular season, but realizing that once tournament time hits, and that's now for Columbiana because they just played their last regular season game, everything doesn't matter. Their regular season doesn't matter. They are nothing and nothing. They have washed everything away, and they say it's a new start. And they know better than most teams that no matter how talented they are or how much of a favorite they are, you got to show up and play these tournament games. It's one and done. It doesn't matter if you're that much better. This is a fickle sport, and no matter who you're playing, if you don't show up, you can get beat. Now, you look at this game that they're waiting, Wycliffe and Garfield. I think it's actually an interesting sectional semifinal. Wycliffe the 8, Garfield the 13. Garfield might be a little bit underseeded because of the schedule they play. They have to play Champion twice in their conference, and they play a couple of really good Portage County teams. They've played Rootstown this year. So maybe a little bit underseeded because of their strength of schedule. I definitely give it to Garfield at the SOS. I know Wycliffe has a really impressive freshman class. I haven't been able to see them live yet, but I've heard that Wycliffe has a good freshman class. So they're going to be young and hungry, but young doesn't always translate into winning in tournament games. That stage sometimes gets to the better of freshmen. Sometimes it doesn't. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Blue Devils handle that aspect of this game, what their freshman young talent they've relied on all year, how they do on this stage. Garfield is going to be, what they've been doing all year when they win. They pitch well enough to win, and their offense takes over. They have a lot of good hitters on that team. Lizzie Moore is starting to really hit a stride in the circle, start to pitch a lot better the last couple weeks of the season. So I think Garfield's treading in the right direction, and they should be able to upset Wycliffe in that win. They'll have to go on the road to do it. Columbiana could be playing Garfield in that sectional final. Then you go to the bottom, and you're seeing Rootstown, who's a 10 seed, but a very good 10 seed. They have an arm that is phenomenal. Going to Akron or Miami, I forget which one. Going D1, either way, next year. So they have a very good pitching arm. What they've struggled with this year is consistent offense. And sometimes teams with really good pitching can do this where you're so used to winning these 2-0 games, 3-0 games, that your offense kind of gets a little lackadaisical. And you feel like the last couple of games, Howland beat them 10-0. Their bats just have not showed up for them in recent games. So can their bats be productive in this sectional? I think if they're not, Pine Shooting Valley, who got into the district semifinals last year, good enough to beat them. Good enough to beat them. I would not be shocked if the Lakers come in hungry in this district tournament. They return a lot from last year. And they come in hungry and they bite the Rovers. Would not be shocked at all. I think Rootstown's lack of offensive consistency might be what hurts them the most in this game. If you want my predictions, I think I would still lean towards Rootstown in that one, Columbiana in the district semifinals, and then in the top, I'm going to go with Poland and South Range going at it in the semifinals. It's kind of feel like it's destined to happen. But we'll see. This district will be held at South Range. District tournament starts on the 14th with the semifinals at 4:30 and 6. And then the championship game will be on May 16th. And that start time will be 5:30 at South Range. Let's go into the other Division III bracket and see what we got going on. This is going to be the LeBray bracket in Leavittsburg. Top line of this one is Champion. They have the 1 seed. They're going to wait the winner of Campbell Memorial and Cardinal Mooney. Down the line, and this sectional final already set. Beechwood will already be matched up with Berkshire. We go further down, Lakeview, the 4 seed. They have the winner of Liberty and Crestview. That's going to be a rematch of MVAC opponents, and those two teams split this year. So that should be a very interesting sectional semifinal. Southeast is the bottom half of the bracket. They await the winner of LeBray and Menor Lake Catholic. Now, if LeBray wins, that game will be in Leavittsburg because LeBray opted to not get the bye as the higher seed. They want to play that first round game, get on the field, and not be rusty. So LeBray will play tonight against Menor Lake Catholic in LeBray. And then Thursday, if they win, they will be at home against the 11 seed Southeast. You look at this bracket, I think anyone from the softball world will say Champion is obviously the favorites in this one. But some interesting teams to watch out for in this bracket as well. Lakeview pitched really well against Champion's offense, which is step one, right? You have to obviously keep them from scoring. They had 5 runs, which is low for them. Lakeview has this 1-2 punch that has been working for them all year with Ava Bacon and Isabella Eisenberg. They can use them at different times. They complement each other well. They really do a good job keeping offenses off balance. But the problem against Champion for Lakeview was they just couldn't hit Gabby Gradishar. It was a perfect game for Champion against Lakeview when they met last week. So if they do get the chance to play each other again, now this is way down the line, this would be a district championship game. But if they do get the chance to play each other again, it'll be interesting to see what offensive adjustments Lakeview is going to use because that offense is very good offense. They have a ton of power. Max Stowe leads them in home runs with the power, but they also have, I think, 4 other players that have hit a home run this year, at least one. So they have that power-riddled lineup. They also have some speed, some stolen base potential. They're good on defense. They're just a solid team. So, they're going to have to make adjustments if they see Champion again. They do have to get through this district, though. This side of the district first. And honestly, I'm looking at Southeast. I think their biggest rival in this game is going to be LeBray. I think LeBray is going to get to this district semifinal. I'm not too high on Ravenna Southeast. We saw them earlier this year at Boardman, and they didn't really put up a fight. I know that's Division I, but Boardman was at a time when they were kind of down and struggling a little bit with injuries. So that was an opportunity for Southeast to show us something, and they really didn't. So I think LeBray is going to be the team that Lakeview's going to be staring down the barrel at in the district semifinals. LeBray's a good team. LeBray's a good team too. They can hit. A lot of people aren't talking about the LeBray Vikings softball team. They can hit really well. They have home run power, and Riley McDonough and Mariah Jones and even Riley Rose starting to come on with some power. Riley Rose starting to also get better as a freshman pitcher as the season goes on. Better and better and better. We saw her pitch really well against Excuse me. We saw Riley Rowe pitch really well last night against United. Against Poland. Poland is a really good lineup. That's a tough lineup to pitch to. And she held them to 2 runs. Now, unfortunately, Olivia Horn was up for the task too and held LeBray's offense to 1 run, so they still lost. But Riley Rowe really pitched a really good game, and that makes me kind of confident in her ability to compete against Lakeview. Lakeview's offense is very comparable to Poland. Very comparable to Poland. They played twice this year. They were both really good games. They were both offensive-heavy games. And I think, if you can pitch to Poland, you can, translate that into having the opportunity or the chance to pitch really well against Lakeview. So I think that would be a very interesting matchup if both teams take care of business and get their way into the district semifinal. If LeBray pulls off the upset, it would be round 3 between LeBray and Champion. But, Champion's got to feel good no matter who's in there, because if they have Lakeview, it's like, well, we threw a perfect game against them, and they beat LeBray twice in the conference. So they probably feel pretty comfortable in this district. We've been in Leavittsburg for a while, even back when South Range played them in LeBray in the district championship that year that South Range went to state. Bree Kohler's senior year. Bree Kohler hit that home run late in the game to give South Range the late lead. They've been in Leavittsburg. They've been comfortable in this district for a while. So they're going back to a place they're very familiar with. They play there once a year, and they'll be there again this season, obviously. I said it. Oh, obviously, tally just going up twice. If you're a fan of Running Point and been watching the last couple of weeks, we've been keeping a tally of how many times I catch myself saying that word, because one day I realized I was saying that word a whole lot. And I'm not going to give you another one today. Not a freebie, at least. Our tally is up to 15. 15 in the last 4 shows. So I'm trying to stay away from it. Let's go back to the Division 3 bracket. I feel like the other 2 are outside of the Ysn family, but I want to double, triple check. Yeah, West 2 and 4. 3 and 4 should be outside of our bracket. These are going to be the teams that will play in regionals. Obviously, I did it again. 16 and 4 shows. Triway is the 1 seed. Everyone knows what they're about. You got Smithville, Mapleton. Triway's going to win this district. That's just not. It's a given. I don't think there's anyone in here that can compete with Division 1 Power 5 caliber pitching. And then you go into this one, and usually you would think Keystone's coming out of this district, but not so fast, my friend. Hillsdale's the 2 seed. Keystone's only the 7 seed. I think Manchester has a legitimate stake in this one, too. I think it's going to come down to Manchester and Hillsdale. Interestingly enough, Hillsdale is the team that South Range played and lost to in their first regional final of this kind of dynasty era back in 2010. That was their first regional trip since 2001, and they have been on a tear as a program ever since. So if South Range lined up with Hillsdale again in the region, it'd be a kind of cool storyline as the Raiders program will come full circle. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll dive into Division 4 District Tournament on Running Point, brought to you, as always, by our good friends over at Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
21 News delivers the news as it happens, using the latest technology from where it happens. on air, online,
Wednesday afternoon weather update,
very dangerous.
and on the 21 News social media platforms.
I'm on the road right now.
21 News, the Valley's only locally owned source for trusted news since 1953.
Craftsmanship to us is 60 years of pride and dedication.
Passed down from generation to generation.
The hardwood floors that your kids take their first steps on.
The solid wood doors you quietly close at night.
The things we create day in and day out are the products that end up turning your house into a home.
At Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods, uncompromising quality and craftsmanship built our business.
And it will keep us moving forward for generations to come.
Going the extra mile at Greenwood Chevrolet means we want to take care of the community that takes care of us too.
And we have to work together always. And that's how you stay in business for 40 years.
You know, I love being a helper because when I help somebody, it makes me feel good.
It means a lot that I can make a difference in others' lives.
So I will do everything I can and just being there for them every step of the way.
I want them to know within the first 5 minutes that they could depend on me. That's what going the extra mile means, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
Before the lights come on, before the workday begins, before a long day is ended, or it's time to have fun. It all starts with the people at Joe Dickey Electric. From replacing a light fixture in your home to building a substation for your business, no job is too big or too small. The people of Joe Dickey Electric power them all. Joe Dickey Electric, over 60 years of powering the Mahoning Valley.
Welcome back to Running Point on ysnlive.com, brought to you as always by our good friends up in the top right-hand corner of the screen right there, Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. They go the extra mile for you. We try to do the same here on this show every single day. We have diving into Divisions 1, 2, and 3 in the softball district tournament. I've broken down the games, the teams that are going to be playing, and now we have one more division to get to, and I promised you would be done by the end of today's show, and here we are with the last division to go in Division 4. Last but not least, of course, as we go into Division 4 Northeast 1, and we look at these teams. This is the Jackson-Milton District, and the top line of the bracket is Matthews. They already know their opponent. Division 4 started last night as Wellsville got the win over Springfield. That was a upset for Wellsville, 30 seed beating 27, as they will go on to play Matthews. You have the bottom half of that district, East Palestine. They have their opponent. They will play Badger tomorrow. That's going to be 14 versus 15 in East Palestine. Then you under that, you have Maplewood. They will now play Bristol. And you have Middle Ridge, the 3 seed. They have the opponent Lowville. They'll play for the second time this year. Third time, I should say. MVAC Scarletier rivals. So you look at this bracket. Matthews is the 1 seed. They've had a couple of chinks in their armor this year, but I think they're still very solid. They hit well. They pitch well. They've been a good program for a long time. So no shocker that they're the 1 seed in Division 4 and sitting up top this bracket line. When you're talking the first half of this bracket, EP is going to have, I think, their hands full against Badger. Even though they're at home, they're the higher seed. I think Badger comes in hot. Isabella Bailey had a great game last night for them. The Braves got the big win, 11-1. I know it's Lordstown. It's the 33 seed. I get it. This is going to be a different animal. East Palestine has had a very under-the-radar good season as a 14 seed in Division 4. Kennedy Andre pitched as well. She hits well. Gabby Andre, also a really good hitter. Lila Martin has played well this year. They have a lot of good offensive stars. Taylor Foster, last couple stories I've written about East Palestine, has stuck out and put together a couple of really good games in a row. So, yeah, East Palestine's coming into the right moment. But Badger, when you win the first game, you always carry momentum into the next round. And I think right now they have a lot of momentum. And Isabella Bailey is, I think, leading the charge here. And that they're going to they're going to have a say in this game against EP. It'll be a very good sectional final, 14 versus 15 at Next Level Sports in East Palestine tomorrow. Look at the bottom line of this bracket. You have Maplewood, the 7, and they're going to play Bristol. I don't think Maplewood will have any trouble at all there. That's 7 versus 21. Maplewood's a solid program. They'll get into the district semis. Then you have Middle Ridge trying to get their way into a possible district championship, but their first task is going to beat Lowville for the 3rd time this year. It's always hard to beat a team 3 times. Lowville has a formidable offense this year. They have scored a lot of runs. They know how to do it. They play it with small ball. They always have. They're a fast team. They don't have a ton of pop in that bat, but they have a lot of single hitters and a lot of just, I'm going to move the bases, move it, and then pass the bat to the next person. Everyone hits pretty decently. Middle Ridge's pitching has been good, then bad at times. They've been, inconsistent. They're young, and they're a young team. So when you're a young team and you're playing a team that's coming off of a win and a team that is really good hitting, really good at putting the ball in play too, it's always just one of the things that sits in the back of your mind. Now, Middle Ridge is the favorites in this game by large. You look at their 2 games this year against Lowville. They won them both. They weren't really they weren't that close. I'm going to go check the final scores now. Hopefully I don't look like an idiot. They were close. They beat Lowville early in the season. They beat them 18-0 and 8-0. So did I see that right, or was it 18-10? No, 18-0, 8-0 were the 2 wins. So Middle Ridge has had that offense's number in the pitching. But once again, like I said, Middle Ridge has looked really good in first stretches in pitching. And then they've had games like the United game where they gave up 16 runs. They're a young team. It's going to happen. You're going to have hills and valleys. They've navigated it really, really well this year. They've never gotten too low. They've never gotten into a big losing streak, and they've never gotten super, super high. So they've really stayed even really well this year. That's why they're the 3 seed, because they've gotten through a couple of tough stretches and worked their way through. Their offense has the pitchers back. It's a very good offense for Middle Ridge. But it's just that young team mentality sometimes can bite you in the tournament. I'm not saying this is like an upset pick, but I would say more than most, this might be a team that's a little bit on upset alert. It's hard to beat a team 3 times. And Lowville is going to come into this game with a win under their belt. They're going to be scrappy. Middle Ridge is the favorite. They're the better team on paper. They should win this game, but you can never count out a team that is in your conference, that is familiar with you, what you do, and they're also feeling pretty confident about themselves. If Middle Ridge does win, though, I think they're absolutely the favorites in the Maplewood game. That would be in the Jackson-Milton district, of course. The one thing that Jackson-Milton in this bracket, if we get weather, that field is not great at taking water. We've seen Jackson-Milton lose a lot of games this year, so that's also on my mind when this gets in the districts. And hopefully we don't even have weather, we don't have to deal with it. But that, it's not going to be a great field when you think about taking water. It's just one of those fields in the area that gets hit pretty hard when the rain comes. Let's go into Northeast 2, final bracket of Division 4, and this one will be happening in Badger. McDonald is the top line of the bracket. They have the 4 seed. They will await. They actually have the winner. At Fairport Harding. They already beat Bloomfield. So McDonald has their sectional final intact. They will play Fairport Harding on Thursday. Tomorrow. And then you go into the next line, Jackson Milton right there. They will play Cardinal, the 9 seed. And this will be in Jackson Milton. So Jackson Milton will be hosting their sectional and then go host a different brackets district. Jackson Milton, if they get to McDonald, if both these teams win their sectional finals, Jackson Milton competed really well in 2 games against McDonald, held that offense in check. McKaylee Thornhill pitched as well as you could ask against McDonald. They tried really hard to help Western Reserve out and steal a win from the Blue Devils of McDonald to give Western Reserve a share of the MVAC. But Isabella O'Brien was just a little bit better pitching, and both of them were low-scoring games that Jackson Milton's offense got shut out in. So if they play each other again, that'll be very interesting because it'll be a third time against Isabella O'Brien, probably. McDonald could throw Brie McCombs, but with the domination that O'Brien has had, I wouldn't even risk it. I'd just throw her if Jackson Milton was your opponent. But McKinley Thornhill has pitched really well against this offense, and their defense has played pretty dang well against McDonald. Their defense has let them down at times this season, but in the last 2 games against McDonald, Jackson Milton's defense really had Thornhill's back for the most part of the game. We go into the next one, and Kansas Central Catholic is the 13 seed. They had the bye. They will play Ashtabula St. John, who got the win last night. That should be a very good sectional final. St. John has a lot of momentum. They won a couple of times last week. They had a walk-off last week. They come in with an 11-3 win over Sebring. And they have a favorable matchup. I mean, Kansas Central Catholic is not a world beater. They definitely have the edge in strength of schedule. They're an independent that plays, the teams that any teams they want, really, their pick of the litter. So they definitely have a tough schedule. But St. John's a very good softball team. They can absolutely go in there and upset the Crusaders. I would not be shocked at all. Bottom of the bracket, you have Western Reserve, the 5 seed. They will play Wyndham, who got the win last night. I think Western Reserve is the favorite on this side of the bracket. And if things play out, if the numbers play out, it'll be Western Reserve versus McDonald, round of 3. They split in the regular season. They both scored more than you'd expect teams to score against the pitching staff that they have. So it'd be really interesting to see if they do play again, does it trend that way? Does it turn into another high-scoring affair? Or do the pitchers make their adjustments and it get a little bit cut down? Western Reserve hit Isabella O'Brien better than any team has this year. They scored 8 runs on her in the win that Western Reserve had. Western Reserve had every opportunity to share the MVAC with McDonald. They fell to Mineral Ridge and lost that opportunity. They had to hope that someone else came up and upset McDonald along the way. That hasn't happened yet. McDonald still has, technically, I think, a game with Sebring left. But with the way they've played Sebring this year, the odds of McDonald losing that game are slim to none. So it was looking like McDonald's going to be your MVAC outright champions. But I think Western Reserve would trade that for a district championship. I think if they said, "Hey, McDonald, you get the MVAC, but we're going to come and we're going to beat you out of the district," that would make them happy. I think that would make Coach Sarinsky and the Blue Devils pretty happy. It would be a very good district championship game. It would, and that would be happening in Badger on the 15th at 5:00. So it would be a very good district championship game. I'm secretly rooting for it. I'm hoping that we get a rematch of that or a rematch of Jackson Milton and Western Reserve. I mean, either way, I think those are the 2 teams that will be in the district semifinals, Jackson Milton and McDonald. So I think no matter what, you're going to have an all-MVAC district championship if that happens. Now, I'm not trying to discount the chances of St. John or Kansas City Catholic beating Western Reserve. I know that's still a possibility. But if Reserve gets there, the top line of the bracket is going to be an all-MVAC affair if it works out the way I foresee it to. And that'll be an interesting 2 rounds of softball. I really do like this bracket, this Division 4. I think a lot of good things are going to happen in Division 4. And I believe these 2 brackets are matched up with each other in the regional semis. I could go and check on that, but I'd have to go to the main OHSAA site. You can't find the regional information here on the district database. So we will check on that in another time and stay on this website here. That'll do it for the bracket breakdown, though. We have gone through every division. We've talked about all the districts, 1, 2, 3, and 4. We've talked about every bracket, all the things that could happen, all the things that are interesting about every bracket. We've had a fun time doing that. We might revisit kind of show like that when the regionals hit, depending on how many teams we have left in the region. Hopefully a lot. Knock on wood. We have a lot there in the regional tournament when the districts are all said and done. But after tonight, every district will be underway. Tonight, districts, divisions 2 and 3 start their sectionals. So after tonight, we will have every district in softball underway. And then when we come back tomorrow, we'll have all the sectional finals set. And then before you know it, boom. At the end, at Friday's show, we will have our district semifinals all set as well. So it happens quickly. We're going to have to say goodbye to teams pretty quick. But it also means we get to see the cream rise to the top here in the next week or so as we get ready for districts and then, of course, regionals. I didn't say that other word. Stop myself. That'll do it for today's show. I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in today. It was a great time. Going over the brackets, always fun talking softball. I tried to control myself, not talk about it too much because I can really get out of hand. Want to take the time, since we have some time, to wish every teacher out there a happy Teachers Appreciation Day. The teachers I had at South Range were immense and big impacts in my life. I go back, and I got a little reflective this morning when I saw our post about it being Teacher Appreciation Day. And I have a memory of every single grade with every teacher I had because they were just so memorable. They were so impactful in my journey. I can go through every grade if I wanted to and say, I remember in this class when we did this, or I remember this about this teacher. And I don't know how many people can say that they remember everything from every grade and every teacher they had. And I will firmly plant my flag on the fact that in at least my era of South Range, I cannot speak about right now. I'm not in the school. I'm not taking classes, but I'm sure the teachers now are great at South Range as well. But I can say my teachers at South Range, who are mostly retired at this point, which makes me feel very old. Most of the teachers at South Range, all my teachers at South Range, were the best that you could have. Never once did I have a teacher that I was like, you know what, we can have better than that, or that's a terrible teacher. I'm sure if you asked me that at the time, there were times when I was like, I did not like this teacher, but it was more of, I don't like this class than I don't like this teacher. It really was. There was not one teacher when I look back and say, man, that teacher was just unfair, or that teacher was just not nice, didn't want to be there. I feel like every one of them enjoyed their job, leaned into it, leaned into what they were doing. Some of my favorite memories, I'll never forget Mr. Sabota and his Pez that he has in his classroom across the whole room back in the old South Range Middle School. He probably still has his Pez dispensers in his classroom at South Range now. He's one of the not retired teachers. I remember making edible cells in Dacia Allen's class, Mrs. Allen, who's now a realtor, by the way. Jello. I used a lot of Jello in my edible cell. Jello pie, which is like you mix Jello and yogurt with some whipped cream, and it turns into this like fluff. And then I use that with actual gelatin Jello as parts of the cell. Never forget that. With little those hard candies as like the I can't remember the parts of the cell. I remember the edible cell. I don't remember all the parts of the cell. 6th grade Anthony is ashamed. I remember Mrs. Frost in 7th grade would let me, like, on off days when we weren't doing anything, I would like entertain the class. Those are some fun memories. Mr. Rappich is a Georgia Tech fan. I had him 7th and 8th grade. Go Yellow Jackets. And then, of course, high school, man, Mrs. Molnar, I had her every year. First, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year. I had her in 2 film studies classes in sophomore and junior year. I had her in English in my freshman and senior year. So I spent a lot of time with Mrs. Molnar at South Range. A lot of my high school career. And then Mr. Patton, I gotta give him a shout out too, because you'll never have a lecture the way you had Mr. Patton. I promise you. Best lectures I ever had in any of my schooling, whether it be the ones I had to do in college, the ones other teachers I had in high school. No one had lecture time, and it was a lot of lecturing in history because that's the only way you learn is someone sitting there and telling you what happened. He made history come alive. You sat there and you listened to him, and you kind of lost the facts, like not the, but you lost all the dates that you were supposed to learn because you were just mesmerized by the story he was telling. It was a class because of that you had to read the textbook a lot to succeed. His tests were really hard because they were long. They were like 150 to 200 questions. But man, his lectures were just grade A lectures, especially when we talked about stuff that I was interested in. I could sit there and just listen to Mr. Patton talk about history all day. So shout out to all the teachers that I had, all the teachers that all these students have, whether you're in South Range or in any school system that's the Ysn family. We thank you immensely for shaping the student athletes that we get to cover after school in their sporting events. We know that the student part of their character is much more important than the athlete part because eventually the athlete stops, but the career and the person they get shaped into is because of the teachers that they have in the school. I am who I am because of the teachers that I had for sure. So I know that when we talk to these athletes and we brag about how mature they are and how well spoken they are, it is because of the teachers that are in their life. You spend more time with the students than probably anyone else will in their life. I can't remember someone that you spend 8 hours a day with, especially in the early grades when you have one or two teachers. You spend 8 hours a day for a whole 9 months with that teacher. Outside of you, like the parents and the immediate family, I don't think there's anyone else I've ever spent that much time with. Even though I'm now, 11 years out of high school. No, geez, 13 years out of high school. But even that, like, I can't think of someone that I've spent more time with in my life than the teachers that I had for all my schooling career. It's crazy to think of. Even the students you go to school with, you think about that and you think, man, I went to school with those kids every day for 8 hours a day for 12 years. You do the math and you're like, I have never spent more time with someone than the people that you spend time with in high school. It's crazy. That's why you remember a lot of, I remember a lot of the people from high school still. Go down and list my class because, you spend so much time with them. I am not kidding. There are still voices that just stick out. Like if I hear you talk, I'm like, hey, I know that person. I went to high school with them because I heard you talk every day of my childhood. It is imprinted in my brain. So, man, happy Teacher Appreciation Day. We hope that all the teachers out there have a good day. Students, appreciate the teachers that you have. I promise you, even if you don't love them in the moment, you will when you look back. One more big story. I have time in that regard. Spanish teacher that I had the last year of Spanish in high school, Mr. Papalardo. Shout out to you, buddy. He came in. We were juniors, right? Class of 2011. We were juniors. We had 2 years of Spanish with the previous teacher. God love her. She was a great lady. She didn't teach us like the structure of Spanish. She taught us vocab. It's a lot of vocab. I knew a lot of words in Spanish. Couldn't put a sentence together to save my life. I was a junior in high school. That class was hard because it was all of a sudden real Spanish. It was learning everything you need to do to be fluent in Spanish. It was not easy. And at the time, didn't like the dude. Didn't like his class. Wanted out of there as quick as possible. As soon as I was done with Spanish, the option to take senior year of Spanish, I was like, no. But I'll tell you what, when I got into college and I had to take Spanish, it was so much easier because I had 1 year of Spanish to fall back on. 1 year of solid Spanish. I probably would not have survived college Spanish without Mr. Papalardo's class. Plain and simple. End of discussion. So it's things like that make you realize that even if, let's say you have a bad class right now or the teacher just seems like they're grading you tough, you'll take it from an old guy who's been out of high school for 14 years. You will appreciate it when you get into life and you realize I wasn't able to do that without that teacher. I'll have a lot of those moments as you grow up. I promise you that. So teachers, once again, thank you for all the time that you put into the students. And I hope you have a happy Teacher Appreciation Day. I believe that every day we should appreciate our teachers, but it's nice to have a day for you guys set aside. That'll do it for today's episode of Running Point. We thank you so much for tuning in again, and we'll see you tomorrow. It's going to be an awesome Running Wednesday. We have a great show for you. Running Wednesday, episode 4 tomorrow, and then Scotty will also be on the show as well. So going to be a fun Wednesday tomorrow. Don't miss it. 1 to 2 on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. We'll see you tomorrow.